Are you getting married? Do you know someone that is? Are you wondering if you and your partner are ready to take that next step in your life, in your relationship? Do you want to strengthen the foundation of your relationship moving into marriage? If you do, Day One, the premarital program is here to help you. So if you want to kind of learn those tips, those tools, those strategies to prepare yourself for that next chapter in your life and your relationship, then give Day One, the premarital program, a try. So within this program, you are going to get those tips, those tools, those strategies. You're also going to get that guidance to help you prepare as much as possible for that next chapter. The thing about preparing for that next chapter is that there's no way to be 100% ready for the next step in your life, but you do want to be as prepared as possible before you get there. So that's where the Day One premarital program comes into play. So if you're ready to prepare and start really growing towards that next chapter in your life, in your relationship, give Day One, the premarital program, a try. Click the link below and get started today. That's the Day One premarital program, and let's get started today.
All right. So welcome to another episode of Adding Perspective with Josh. I'm Josh.
I'm Coach Nrgy.
I'm Aphrodite.
All right. This week we're going to talk about, am I too considerate? And this is a question that you should ask yourself. Like just for a moment, humor me a little bit. Like, ask yourself, am I too considerate? Like, do I take other people's, emotions, feelings into consideration before I consider my own? Am I a person that tends to do a lot more for others, like a whole lot more for others than they may do for me? All those questions, right? Ask yourself that. Because the answers that you may give yourself may be shocking, like they may just be this something that gives you a different type of perspective. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about today is, am I too considerate? And when I pose myself that question, am I too considerate? Sometimes I would say, yeah, sometimes, I think I've learned over time that there's a line to consideration. There is, because I think that like even being too considerate, it almost, some people don't know how to handle that. Like some people just look at that as like, oh, they don't mind doing it per se. And then they'll just keep doing it because they're not saying no. And that causes an interesting imbalance in your life and your relationship. Like it does. But I think that's, as far as growth is concerned, I think that's kind of how we all navigate life sometimes. It's like sometimes people get to a point where it's like, you know what, I'm fed up with I'm fed up with these people asking me this all the time and stuff like that. And now I'm ready to tell them no. So when y'all ask yourself, like even y'all, like when you ask yourself, hey, am I too considerate? What would you say? What would you say about yourself?
So personally for me is now I'm not. In the past, I used to be, but I'm not now. I think life lessons and being too considerate taught me that I had to learn how to create some boundaries, and I had to learn the word no, and have discernment about who I'm considering to be considerate to. So, because even being too considerate, the negative part about it is you can build up resentment and not wanting to do anything for anyone because we have allowed ourselves to be too considerate to other individuals. So now I'm very careful about who to consider now, and I have my boundaries and I stick to them to the best of my ability. And I stick to them because I have to realize, like, I don't respond really well when I feel like I've been too considerate and you just like abuse that privilege. So I have to respond with my boundaries really well. I have to stick to that. I have to be intentional about my boundaries. So for me, I used to, but yeah, I learned no, and boundaries. I learned those.
Nrgy?
Internally, just like within myself, my value system, who I am, no. Because I am intentional on being a very considerate person. When it comes to the external doing, the taking actions, fueled by the consideration, no, because I'm very intentional as well about not overdoing it, not burning myself out, not being annoying, because sometimes if a person is too considerate, they can be annoying. And so yeah, just my whole makeup as a person, character, values, things like that, I thrive on consideration and being considerate of others. But understanding that there are limits. And because I have a hold on and a good understanding on those limits, then I make sure that it doesn't, get out of hand or anything like that, to where it becomes it does more harm than good, or to where it, becomes detrimental to me, my happiness, my well-being. Have I ever, growing up, were those boundaries always there, or those limitations always there and understood? No. It took a little time of seeing how, man, I helped someone else out. For an example, helped a coworker out with their tasks or their list of things that they needed to do before they were able to leave for their shift. But then it left me having to stay late or having to stay up later at night to finish everything that I needed to do, because I didn't, I overextended myself, just wanting to be that, that considerate person. So needing to learn how to kind of really understand that. My first awareness of it was like my first part-time job. So we're talking way back in high school. I learned quickly because I was like, man, everyone is left, or everyone is outside playing or whatever. And I'm the one that's still, having to finish my work because I, wanted to be such a help to other people. But yeah, just to kind of give you a little idea of the history of why I am the way that I am today regarding the consideration topic and the question that you asked.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too. I know it ain't always been like straight line, straightforward, like straight laced. It ain't always been like, okay, this is like, how it is.
Nope.
Because I know I have the way that I am with it. I haven't always been that way with it. I think that to a certain degree, we've all gone through some trial and error when it comes to being super considerate with people, even when you shouldn't be super considerate with people. And yeah, in my experience, back in the day and stuff like that, when I was just kind of still learning myself and learning certain components about life and relationships and things like that, relationships for me were always the consideration pitfalls for me. As I was kind of back in the day, really trying to figure out like how to navigate relationships, like when I was in like college and even after college, just trying to figure out like the nature of how relationships kind of work, and then also still figuring out myself too. I've always been that person that the relationship type person, like very super into relationships, super into trying to make the other person happy type stuff. Even in detriment to my own happiness sometimes, just being that considerate per se. And I think relationships and the way that your emotions are and the way that you feel about a person, I think that really affects consideration like a lot, like it does. And yeah, it could be like relational, it could be like a family member, it could be like a real close friend. Like, how you feel about that person, it affects how considerate you are with that person. And I think that's the line that, eventually you got to figure out is like, am I being too considerate? Like, even though they're this close to me, am I still being like way more considerate than I need to be? Because, sometimes with just human nature, sometimes, being that considerate, complacency sets in. Like from the other side of it, like sometimes people just kind of take that for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like sometimes a big pitfall, especially when maybe you have that people pleaser mentality. Like you one of those people that really just, you feel deeply, right? Like some people may be an empath, basically. Like you feel so deeply about people and the way that they feel and the way that they perceive you that it's like you don't want any negative vibes going. So in order to kind of deflect from those negative vibes, you just give. You know what I'm saying? Like you give in, you just consider it. I just think that's just, I don't know, I guess from my standpoint, that's just an interesting little road there when it comes to like trying to figure out, are you giving too much of yourself? So even with that, when you talk about giving too much of yourself or giving too much to a person, what do you think the line is? Right? Like when you talk about like, being too considerate, like what do you think because I know the line per se is different for everybody, but if there was a line, what do you think that would it be?
So, of course, everybody's line is different, but I can say like my line was, one day I just couldn't give no more. I didn't have nothing to give. What I'm pouring out of an empty cup, like I didn't have it to give. And you still pulling on me. You still asking. You still want me to do. In the moment, the line was for me was, I don't have it to give. Like I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. And the moment when I told you I didn't have the resources to give, because my time is my resource, my energy is my resource, all that belongs to me. But the moment I told them I didn't have it to give, and their reaction was so ugly. I was like, really? Like I at that time, I'm like, what just happened here? Like I've been giving, going, doing. Like not considering myself. I haven't considered myself. I considered you all the time. I didn't know the word no. I didn't know what a healthy boundary looked like. I was just like, well, I'm gonna do it anyway. It's okay. I used to be like, it's okay. No, it's not okay. But how they responded And when I got home, I'll never forget that day I got home. When I got home, I just cried because I was just like, what just happened here? After I have given all of me, and the moment I tell you I can't give, I don't have it. You can't get what I don't have. This is your response. Okay. So that day, I was like, you got to do something different. This not working for you. But that was my limit because I just, you know, I was just, I would give just heartedly because that's just who I would be, who I am who I was at that time. And with no intentions or expectations, you giving things back to me or nothing. I ain't expecting nothing back. I'm just, we friends or associates or whatever. But it's like, okay. But I didn't realize the importance of, even when you giving and considering others, they need to consider you too.
Yeah.
Like, it's a two-way street in that conversation. And it's just not. You cannot just keep taking from something and not deposit back. And being too considerate and not knowing boundaries and stuff like that, it will leave you very unhappy. It will leave you disgruntled, because I was disgruntled. You know, I just didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So I had to figure that thing out like really fast. And when I figured it out, it was unpleasant to a lot of people because they so used to me giving and being considerate. Oh, you considered this last time? Okay, that was last time. This the whole. And to hear people say that to me, like, you did it before? Okay, I did. And I should not have. Because there's a lot of things that I did, I shouldn't have done it. You know, it was just a setup for no good. But I did it.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to learn that. Like, that probably didn't hit me to 30.
Yeah. I don't think it's a necessary time frame on when people learn that they may be too considerate. I mean, I think that's just a stage in life thing too, you know?
Right.
I think to a certain degree also, I think that, you know, the moment you feel like the consideration that you're giving is changing you as a person in a way that you may not like, is probably when you should really reevaluate that consideration. Because sometimes, you know, even being that considerate and stuff like that, and you really wanting the best for a person to a point where you like, you feel like you're the only one that wants it, you know, like you're the only one that wants the best for that person, even when the other person says that they want it, but they don't. You know, they don't give you the actions behind what they say, you know. That's when I think that, you know, you should really evaluate like where you're at as an individual. But even with that, people couldn't tell you that either. Like, you know how, like, even when you being too considerate, like you may have family members or friends, especially the real people, they tell you, hey, you know, maybe you doing too much, or maybe you giving a little bit too much in this situation. You like, and then you just want to kind of rationalize it at that point, like, no, I'm not. You know, I'm not giving, you know, too much in that situation and stuff like that. Be very careful with the rationalization part, right? Because that's the first thing that sometimes we do is like, as soon as somebody brings something to our attention, we want to kind of, you know.
Explain.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Say, hey, nah, this ain't what that is, you know. And honestly, like telling yourself the truth is the hardest. Like sometimes it is what it is. Sometimes it is like you giving too much, you're doing too much. And getting to that point, I think is like the most difficult thing for like some people too, is because it's when you're used to doing that for so long, and a lot of stuff that I'm talking about is like, it's not like no recent thing. It's like you've been, ever since you started like dealing with people, you've been that same way the whole entire time. And really changing something like that is just difficult, like especially when you are like actively involved with somebody or something like that, or even it's like I said, if it's a close family member or friends, like it's just difficult to change because I mean at that point you don't want to hurt nobody's feelings. You don't. So it is an interesting process, I would say. But even with that, like Nrgy, where would you say the line?
Anytime that you notice it starts to negatively affect you, your mental health, your emotional well-being, your time, your peace, your household, your finances, as soon as you start seeing that it's negatively affecting, nip it in the bud right then and there. Or start the process of nipping it in the bud. Start the process of making those adjustments, those changes. Because like you said, it could be something that a person has been doing for quite a while. It could be a pattern or a habit, and they're so used to it. So sure, the change may not happen immediately or overnight, but at least starting the process and just starting to notice, where being too considerate is not beneficial, then for me, that would be where that line is.
So should people blame themselves for being so considerate?
Yes, it's a choice. As much pressure, peer pressure, pressure from parents, from your spouse, your partner, your loved one, shoot, even your kids, your boss. Yeah, it's at the end of the day, your response to people's hands being out is your choice. It's in your control of how much of you want to give.
Yeah, because I think that's always interesting. Like when you're that considerate with somebody, looking inward, I guess, and like really, evaluating yourself to say that, is this my fault? Like was this my thing that I was this considerate?
And that's important to do because accountability is important whenever there's a need for some sort of change. Seeing where your own choices, your own actions, where it, the part that it played in the situation. So yeah, that's important.
Yeah. I just think that I guess that, I mean, I think I get the fact that that's important. I just think that, I guess human nature, when it comes to like, if a person is one specific way for so long, do they even know that they're doing it? Do they even know that they are even exhibiting those types of behaviors at that point? Because it's essentially in their DNA. Like it's something that's a part of them to be that way. So how much blame can you place on yourself then? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, it's a core value type thing,
But even with their core value doesn't mean it's yours, and you still had a choice in the matter. Like you still chose to, when you recognized it, if you recognized it, then you got a choice to like, I'm not going to do it anymore. Regardless of if it is in them. That's them. But that don't mean you have to do it. That's their thing. That don't mean it's your thing.
I assume that's gonna require additional support to do that for some
I
people.
mean, it does require additional. It's gonna require. It might require additional support.
Yeah.
It also requires you to stand stern on what you believing in at that time and that moment. So, if your answer is no, and they might be a person, they might have temper tantrums and all kind of stuff, but leave them right there having it because your answer is no. If that's your answer, like you, with that type of behavior, you cannot sway from what you're talking about, because the moment you sway is the moment they know, okay, I'm back into, I can do this and I can get this.
Yeah.
It's really manipulation at that point, but you allow them to manipulate you because you don't want to stand your ground. Stand your ground. The answer is no. Okay, so no, I'm not doing it. Typically, those people can ask about 100 more times, and they can get 100 no's. Or, I've learned to get silent. I told you no 3 times, I'm done. I don't have nothing else to say.
Okay. Like I said, take time to get to where you're at. Okay, it does.
It takes a lot of time, but it's like you have to learn. Somewhere in the mix, you're gonna have to learn, or else you're gonna keep repeating the same pattern.
Yeah.
So, where you drawing the line at? So we right back to where the line is drawn at.
Yeah.
Because Nrgy just explained to us, like, when it starts affecting your finances, your peace, your happiness, like when it starts affecting those things, where do you draw the line? Because it's not their fault. It's not their fault. That's your fault. Because now you know who they are, but you still choose to operate the way you're operating.
Mm-hmm. No, you both are correct. You're right. You get to that point where it's like, this seems a little much. Change has to happen.
Yeah. And to go a little bit further into the question that you were asking, what about when a person has been doing it for so long to where it seems as if it has become a part of their DNA? Then, is it their fault, or are they at fault, or whatever? Once a person becomes a certain age, in my opinion, the reason I'm saying this is because for some people, like as a kid, teenager, and even sometimes as a young adult, when you have been in a household or around people who kind of took your control away, parents, grandparents, then yes, I can understand the scenario that you presented where, if it's a part of their DNA, they've been doing it for so long, maybe they're not aware of it. So I get it. However, after, living a little life and, becoming more into being an adult, where they are now starting to make their own changes, and deep down within them, your core, your heart, your conscience, if you're a religious person, the spirit, something will tell you, your intuition, your gut, something will tell you that this just doesn't seem right. Like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right. And that's where it becomes that's where that person now has a choice of, are they going to continue, or are they going to do the work, do the research, get the support, figure out, am I, ask that question, well, am I the one? Because some people, may question themselves, like, well, am I wrong for not wanting to do this, or not wanting to always be there for this person, or not always, wanting to lend money, whatever it is. When those thoughts then start to speak to you or that person, when that intuition, that gut feeling, that the spirit, whatever it is, starts to rise to the surface, at that point, is where the person should then start asking that question or opening their eyes, because the awareness piece is wakening up. If that kind of helps go a little bit further with your question, in addition to what Aphrodite was saying.
No, that was good. You know, that wasn't a lot deeper with that one. That put a whole new twist on what I was talking about.
Because I know there are going to be some people who are listening, maybe, that may say, oh, well, everyone doesn't have the wherewithal. Okay, cool. Yeah, sure. At some point. But at some point in life, your body will reject that habit. Say something isn't quite right with this. This cannot be the norm, because it's stressing me out, or I'm constantly losing sleep, or my bills are late because I've dished out money to help other people. So I went a little bit deeper just to try to help answer that question for those who are listening and who may say, oh, well, everybody's not, everybody doesn't have that. Understand. Okay. Here's the response to that.
Mm-hmm. Cause I'm pretty, like, even to what you're saying, like, I know, like, before I really got to the point where I got to, some things just didn't sit right. And I'm like, why this don't sit right with me? You know what I'm saying? But I wasn't so in tune with what didn't sit right. But now, like, I'm so in tune with it don't sit right. I'm like, nope, not doing it. And it's like, what's wrong? That don't sit right with me. I ain't doing it. Like, I can't do it. The answer is no. And the blessing about it is, it's always on point. Like, it's like, that intuition, that gut feeling, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you choose to call it. The spirit, whatever you choose to call it. Everybody have their own different relations on what they want to say, but it is something that was just like, something ain't right about this.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're definitely right about that. So, for people to segue from, and I know we talked about this before, I guess in bits and pieces in this conversation, for people to start being more self-aware of how considerate they are, to be kind of a little bit more self-aware about that, what do you think people can do to do that? Because sometimes people do want to be less considerate when it comes to certain situations, and they just don't know how, like they don't know where to start, Like, how do you think that people can start being a little bit more for self and kind of sort of less for others?
So one thing that I did was, because I had this habit of, I looked at myself. Like, I didn't look at nobody else. I looked at myself, right? And because I gave up so much of myself, I realized a lot of things went undone for me. So I looked at myself and I was like, what are some things I need to consider self for versus giving up all me for this particular situation or this particular person or whatever. And one of them was about finances, right? So I came up with this thing. I said, I came up with an amount, like, per person. I was like, well, if so-and-so asked me for this, how much it's gonna hurt me? If it's gonna hurt me so much that I'm gonna act up, because I used to act up about my money, right? Then I don't need to give it, period. Because I need to consider me. So a lot of people like, that's crazy, that's wrong. It's not, it works for me. Like, you might get the answer no, but so-and-so, they might ask for 40, they might get 20. 20, I ain't gonna cut up with you about 20, but I'm gonna need my 40 back. Like, I'm gonna really act up about my 40. So therefore, I could give you 20, and if you don't ever come back, then you know where you stand, and I know where you stand, and then I ain't gonna have no hard feelings, and I'm done. But I had to consider me. Like, I really needed to look at me and look at my actions and look how I felt about things, and really find out, like, why is it like this for me? Because at the end of the day, it was affecting me a lot.
Yeah.
So one thing I would say is look inward. You know, even if you have to write it out, I don't know, like whatever it looks like for you, if you have to write it out, you know, even if you have to break it down per person, because sometimes it's like the same people. It's a repeater. It's a pattern that we repeat. Can be the same person.
Yeah.
And then to me, you got to figure out like why I keep being this considerate with this person. What is it?
Yeah. That's a valid question to ask yourself too. Yeah. I think to add on to what you said, I think that people should definitely ask themselves, like when somebody asks you to do something for them, asking themselves first, how is this going to affect me? Like, it's going to affect me in a positive way? It's going to affect me in a negative way? Like, how's it going to affect me? There's nothing wrong with asking yourself that. That's not selfish. That's not wrong to ask yourself how this is going to affect me. Because you're the one that's going to do it. Like, obviously, you have to consider your own feelings about the whole thing. And I think that a lot of times when people get locked into being so considerate, they're considering the other person's feelings before they consider their own. They're not taking into account like their inconvenience or is this going to affect them in a particular way. So that would be my first thing right there, simply asking yourself, how's this gonna affect me? Like quick and simple, you know, quick and easy. You know, you gotta think about it too hard, you're not gonna ask yourself, okay? How about you, Nrgy? Like how can people be a little bit more mindful of themselves?
So sorry. Ask the question again.
Did you zone out there? Are you okay? You
Yeah.
see like you was taking that question in a little too deeply. Like it was like you feeling it in your chest. It was like,
bro.
I was like,
no, like you. Yeah. Okay. Ask the question again.
And she was about to like let it out, right? So it was like she was getting. You could tell she was getting like the jaws ready. It was ready, but it's like it's not ready, but it's ready.
And I need to make sure I ask or I answer exactly what you asked. Now, yeah, clarify your question again.
Yeah, like we were talking about people being a little bit more mindful of how considerate they are, right? So what will be some best practices for people to be a little bit more mindful of themselves and kind of less mindful of others first?
Right. So first thing for me is to pay attention to what your thoughts are saying. And as long as you take care of your body will take care of you. Meaning, your body will give you those physical responses presented with a question or a situation. It could be, did your muscles tense? Did the hairs on the back of your neck or your arm stand? Did you feel the shiver, go over your body? Or did your body feel like it just got hot all of a sudden, internally? So if you take care of your body will take care of you, in a sense of your body will let you know if something is good for you or not. So that's one of the first things, is just paying attention to self, because your self will talk to you throughout the day. What a lot of people don't do is listen. What a lot of people don't do when their body is talking to them is pause and take account of what is going on. Figure out how their body is responding in this situation. Okay, it did the same thing in the situation from last week with a different person, but I'm feeling those same little goosebumps. I feel that same little uneasiness. I'm getting that same little tension headache. So start there by listening to yourself. And the way to do that is to take care of your body, and your body will in turn take care of you. Secondly, is get around others who you see the way that they move, the way that they handle life, the way that they handle situations, where they handle stress well, or they handle interactions well with other people. They handle conflict well with other people. Conflict not to be confused with conflict is a term of, is a part of confrontation, but still not necessarily going in an argument back and forth with someone, but understanding that if someone asks you something and you have to say no, that automatically is a part of the definition of conflict. So the next thing that I would say is, this is why I had to ask you to ask that question again, because I had a whole lot of responses and I'm trying to make them make sense. The next thing is to reach out to third-party coaches, therapists, counselors, mentors, and go on the journey of discovering and seeing, where did this all begin? So therefore you can start to make those changes, start to make those adjustments, start to create new habits, new patterns by replacing the old patterns and the old habits that are no longer serving you. Because also working with a professional, what that's going to do is help understand that thinking of self first, putting self first, is not selfish, which is a part of the big reason of why a lot of people are overly considerate or people pleasers, because somewhere within they believe that, or have been taught or have been manipulated into the thought that, well, if I try to put myself first, my well-being first, then that's being selfish, and it shouldn't be that way. I should be willing to help others first. Yes, but, it's kind of like, not a but, yes, and, yeah, that's my response, because I can keep going.
Well said. Okay. Well said.
I'm tired now. That was a lot.
You broke it down in about almost 4 different stages. So that was good. Okay, that was good.
Whew, yeah.
So there's a lot of different, components of how, people can be a little bit more considerate of themselves and just kind of improve upon that if that's something that people kind of struggle with. But definitely, if you ever get to a stopping point where it's like, I don't know what to do, yeah, definitely consider that, reaching out and finding that support that you need so that you can kind of get that streamlined for yourself and live a happier, productive life. So been a great episode of Added Perspective with Josh. I'm Josh.
Can I plug for a second?
Go ahead, do your thing.
Okay. So it's funny that that question that you asked was about self-awareness, mindfulness, and things like that. Mm-hmm. Well, how can people help with the additional assistance with that, learn the how-to behind self-awareness and mindfulness, I created a resource. This audio coaching product right here, it's called What's Your Passcode? Keys to Accessing the Life of Your Dreams. Ultimately, it teaches you how to live the best version of yourself. And key number one, lesson number one, with intention, is self-awareness, because that's how important living your best life, becoming the best version of yourself, making any sort of improvements, changes, and developments along this journey and this thing that we call life, is to be aware of the thing, to be aware of you, yourself, your situation. So get a copy of it. Go to my website, nrgspeakslife.com. And yeah, that'll be one of the best things that you can do as far as to help yourself begin this process. I'm Coach Nrgy. Thanks.
And I'm Aphrodite.
Have a good day. We're out.